Alright, today on VHS Crazy we got a real winner. Meet the Parents with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller. Buckle up, folks. This is an episode you won't want to miss.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
So for a movie directed by the same guy as Austin Powers, I don't really see too many similarities between Meet the Parents and Austin Powers. Austin Powers is a lot more over the top. Meet the Parents is a lot more grounded. But then again, this guy, Jay Roach, has done a lot of stuff. More stuff than I can name. Meet the Parents being only one installment in the long legacy of Jay Roach. This is a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's got a lot of chemistry. It's got a lot of dynamics. It's got a lot of very interesting sight gags and references. It's a very sophisticated family comedy. It's kind of like Love Actually, but less sappy. In fact, Love Actually is one of the collection. I'm going to be reviewing it here pretty soon, but that said, Meet the Parents is I don't know, it's one of the best Ben Stiller movies, hands down. And I would even go so far as to say it's also one of the best Robert De Niro movies. Robert De Niro's career can be broken up into two chunks. One where he's a hot young taxi driver Robert De Niro.
You talking to me?
And one where he's silly fat old Robert De Niro, Jack Burns.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
I saw this on VHS a long time ago. I haven't seen Meet the Parents 2, Meet the Fockers. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be so great. I hope to find a VHS of it somewhere. Because Dustin Hoffman's in it. And if you got Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller, I think you got a recipe for success right there. I did see Meet the Parents 3 Little Fockers in theaters, and it was a fun experience. If I remember correctly, there is a bit where Owen Wilson is a crying clown, and he cries and dramatic music plays. And I also remember something about Robert De Niro being like Jaws in a bull pit and chasing Ben Stiller around. Just a lot of fun. This is a good trilogy, so if you're ever into watching, all three of these back to back, yeah, I'd suggest that. It's really interesting to see the sentiment change from 2001 when this came out, or 2000, to 2010 when the final installment comes out. It's really, the characters really evolve over that decade. And I'd say Meet the Parents does a good job of fleshing out 2000 to 2010 as a whole. In my Gothic review, I mentioned that a lot of 2000s movies have this weird sort of feel to them. Meet the Parents doesn't have that sort of feel at all. It has a very homey, timeless feel. In fact, this movie stands up way better than Austin Powers does, or I don't know, it probably stands up better than Meet the Parents 2. It is a remarkably resilient film when it comes to being relevant, and I can watch this now and I wouldn't even know that it was made in 2000s. I could think it was made last year, and that's just how good all the design is and everything. This movie is not outdated. It holds up. Now that might be because there's not much technology in the movie, despite there being a polygraph machine. There's not much internet. There's not too many dated references. Everything in this movie still exists and in some capacity. In fact, the infamous polygraph machine is explained to be an antique polygraph machine, and he doesn't even need it. Like it says, he's a human polygraph machine. But the lie detector scene is every bit as hilarious as you may have heard it was.
Looking for something, Greg?
Robert De Niro really does a tour de force here, and his hair is a lot less gray than I remember it being, which is pretty weird. I remember his hair being really gray. That might be because, like I said, I split his career into young, hot Robert De Niro with nice jet black hair.
You talking to me?
And old, fat Robert De Niro with the gray hair. But
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
he's actually kind of young in this. The cover makes him look older than he is in the movie for some reason. But, you know, he maintains his good looks. As for Ben Stiller, what can I say? Hilarious guy. Every scene with Ben Stiller is a sheer delight. Many have called this one of the best movies about male nurses. I agree. In 2000, I'd say if there's one thing that's kind of outdated about this movie, it's how he constantly gets made fun of for being a male nurse.
You know, Greg's in medicine too, Larry.
Oh, really? Yeah. What field?
Nursing.
That's good.
No, really. What field?
Nursing.
It may have been a little wacky back in 2000, but now it's just like, oh, you know, it's a guy and he's a nurse, and so. But, you know, like I said, everything in this movie still happens in some capacity today. I assume male nurses still get made fun of quite a bit, you know. But, so yeah, if you're a male nurse, you'll enjoy this movie. Happens to be an insanely specific demographic, but if you're anyone, you'll enjoy this movie. If you're Jewish, you'll enjoy this movie. If you're, you know, this is just a movie that really appeals to pretty much everyone, except, I guess, the sort of family Jack Burns has got. The very wealthy suburban elite, the Protestant upper class mansion type. It really makes fun of that, although not so much. I mean, it is what it is, you know. As far as social commentary goes, I don't think you should look at Meet the Parents for much of a social commentary. It's not that kind of movie. There's really no crazy political, structural thing going on here. It's just a fun farce. It's just a wacky, crazy, fun time with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller packing the punches. On the Wikipedia page for Meet the Parents, I was surprised to find multiple paragraphs explaining the themes of the movie, and I really don't think there are too many themes besides Ben Stiller being Jewish and Robert De Niro being, a Christian. I think there's not too many other themes in the movie. For the most part, it's just a fun, non-stop romp, There's some really cool stuff in this movie, some very inventive scenarios, some very clever mishaps on the part of Jay Roach. And of course, Owen Wilson's in this, and he's really good, and he even does his famous wow a couple of times.
Wow.
Anyone can do an Owen Wilson wow. I don't know. Is that good? I don't know. Tell me in the comments. But yeah, this is a solid film. And it says it's rated PG-13. And I think what's really interesting is that, Greg Focker's last name is an actual surname. Some people actually have that last name. That's very interesting. The MPAA almost rated this an R, but at the last minute, they were able to provide a list of people with the last name Fokker, and it was passed as PG-13. It's actually, I actually agree with that rating. There's not too much that's lewd in this movie. It's not a gross movie. It's a very nice, wholesome film. It's a very nice romance. Jay Roach described it as a 40s farce, kinda, and I would definitely agree. It has a lot in common with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, except the visitor is, Jewish instead of black, so there's all that going on. And I don't know, this for me is the high point of Ben Stiller's career. I don't believe Ben Stiller really got anywhere better after this. Like, this is hands down one of his best films. He really encapsulates all that patheticness, and the tension is just palpable. Like, it's some good stuff. You really like Robert De Niro. He is hilarious in this, and this is the first time the world ever knew that, you know, this frickin', you know, Robert De Niro is so funny, but gosh darn, he's a laugh riot. Like, who would have thought, right? But he's just, it is beyond words. This is a great film. You know, as with a lot of comedies, a lot of the humor comes from the wacky scenarios that ensue. A lot of crazy conveniences that go into place. In many ways, a comedy is a lot like an urban legend. A lot of crazy stuff has to happen just right in the correct chain of events for all this absolute crazy stuff to go down. For instance, there's a sequence, it's very subtle, where Ben Stiller's suitcase gets lost, and then he signs for a new suitcase, and Robert De Niro silently opens the suitcase and sees a bunch of dominatrix equipment inside, and he believes that Greg is a pervert. Gosh darn, isn't that just the funniest setup? I don't know if this was released post 9/11 or pre 9/11, but there's a lot of relevant and topical airline humor in this. It says 2000, so pre 9/11, but it has a remarkable amount of insight.
Can't say bomb on an airplane.
Bomb, 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 bomb.
And I know it that doesn't really make sense, because there's a scene where it seems like it's trying to make fun of an airline for being too neurotic and paranoid, and that seems to be the sort of sentiment that you only see in post 9/11 movies. I guess Meet the Parents, you know, in every aspect is just very, very ahead of its time. It really knows what it's going for, and 21 years since this was released. What else is there to say about this? Owen Wilson's really good. He's only in it for a short period of time, but I really like the idea that he's this stuck-up Christian fundamentalist who believes he's the next version of Jesus. And
Wireless IPOs.
he's a carpenter, and then he pulls the cloth down off the chuppah, and he says he shaved it in an hour. You know, obviously it took like 4 weeks. You know, because it's very intricate. It's got all these crazy carvings. The other bit I really like is Ben Stiller's wacky prayer at the dinner table. Gosh darn, is that just a fun time. It's so awkward. I'd say every scene in this movie is very awkward. If you like cringe, this is the movie for you. The movie itself isn't cringe, but it kind of forces you to cringe with just how far the scenario can get, and just how far Robert De Niro will go to uncover the truth about who Greg Fokker is and what he's up to, and how far Greg Fokker will go to discover the truth about who Jack Burns is, and if he's still in the CIA. I do feel like the CIA element is a little tossed in there. It's not an espionage thriller after all, but it does add a lot of mystery and suspense to the plot. And when you see Robert De Niro talking to this guy in the parking lot, you wonder, well, could he be a CIA operative? He's not young, hot Robert De Niro anymore. He's old, fat Robert De Niro, but, you know, could he be? But I'm not going to spoil whether he is or not, because that's part of the fun, that's part of the magic. But yeah, this is a very mature comedy, I'd say. It's definitely a nice date night pick if you get, because it's also a romance in many ways. if you got a spouse over, pop this in, and you'll be smooching in no time and laughing the whole way. Or just if you want a good hearty chuckle, there's not too much, there's not too much provocative humor in this. It's a very standard, fun, romantic comedy with a nice twist. The premise is pretty relatable. I'd say they're in-laws, fun joke, but really this is the ultimate in-law movie. I don't believe anyone has ever made fun of in-laws as well as this movie does. Because, like, Robert De Niro is just such a great antagonist. Like, he is so grumpy and moody and brooding, and you just feel the tension in this dysfunctional family as their world falls apart, and Greg Fokker is thrust out of his element, and they're just as uncomfortable around him because they're not used to having guests over, and I don't know, it stuffs 2 days worth of events into 2 hours really well. It has a great sense of pacing, and it makes these 2 days stuffed into these 2 hours feel like 2 actual days. I'm not sure how it does that. I guess it's just Jay Roach, the magic of Jay Roach. I like Austin Powers, but Austin Powers is funny and everything, but if you're looking for a comedy with less potty humor, less lowbrow stuff, as it were, then this is the thing for you. I kind of find it hard to believe it's the same guy, because Austin Powers is such a different movie, such a different comedy in so many ways. But Meet the Parents is pretty gosh darn slick, if I do say so myself. The lie detector scene really encapsulates the movie as a whole, what the movie's going for. I find that with a lot of with a lot of movies, they have a very recognizable font. The Meet the Parents font is very distinguishable, and that's nice. A lot of 90s, 2000s movies have that. Just red against a white background. That is the mark of quality right there. Some people actually tore Meet the Parents 3 little Fockers apart. I didn't think it was that bad. In fact, if I remember correctly, there's a fun little remix in the end credits.
Burns, obsessed with boobs. He could breastfeed his grandson. Burns, mammary gland, couple of tugs off the thing himself. Hey.
I was glad to see it in theaters, I like seeing fun sequels to fun comedies on the big screen. So sue me. I was the same about Dumb and Dumber 2, because I wasn't alive when Meet the Parents 1 or Dumb and Dumber 1 came out in the movie theaters, so the least I can do is enjoy their sequels, which in many ways are perfectly alright. Little Fockers, it was an okay movie. I think it's a pretty solid trilogy. The first one obviously is definitely the best, and most of the memorable scenes are from Meet the Parents 1. But, if you're going all out and you're getting a DVD box set, I don't think Meet the Parents 3 came out on VHS. Just another problem with people abandoning a format that's perfectly reasonable and satisfies all the demands a consumer could ever have. I don't believe it was put out on VHS. Real shame. I'd love to see Meet the Parents 3 on VHS. Maybe own the whole series on VHS, but that's the problem with the series that spans 2000 to 2010. But if you're getting a DVD box set, enjoy it. All 3 movies are pretty good. All of them have Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. I don't know, it's a good movie. I give this 5 stars. It's a funny comedy. It does what it sets out to do, and I'd say Jay Roach's description of it is a kind of throwback to these 40s farces where you have different types of people pitted against each other. Is very accurate. In many ways, it's a screwball type comedy, if that makes sense. It's modern screwball for you. But yeah, that's Meet the Parents. A very nice movie. Definitely give this one a watch. Check it out. I think you'll agree with me that it has aged really well. This is the kind of movie that never gets old. You could watch it. You could watch it tomorrow and you wouldn't even know it's set in 2000. That's just how well made and well put together this thing is. That said, this has been another installment of VHS Crazy, episode 4 up at this point, so we still have quite a few tapes to go through, and uploading all of these has been a real chore, but I'm willing to stick it out. If you'd like to support these reviews, then buy some Nicholas comics and write to Nicholas Cicada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado, 80206, and I'll see you in the next one. This is a gosh darn good film, and yet another example of a fine release on VHS. If I recall, this sold very well on VHS. Everyone snapped these up like hotcakes, and I'm lucky to have a copy of this. You don't know what you're missing on VHS until you give VHS a try.